Welcome back to the afternoon session. I'm Stacey Delicat, and thanks for hanging out with us this afternoon. All right, so the jury decided on life in prison for Markeith Loyd. They passed on the death penalty. This is the same jury that last week unanimously voted to find him guilty in just under 5 hours time here. Are you surprised at all? I mean, this is Florida. We see a lot of death penalty cases here. More often than not, it seems that the defendant will get the death penalty in a case like this that seems to be so open and closed. But in this case, the jury said, no, life in prison.
I am surprised, just given the set of facts before that jury and the fact that they did find him guilty on those set of facts. I mean, we really sort of have a egregious crime where he murders his ex-girlfriend. She's pregnant at the time. It's really the sort of set of facts that would lend itself in a state like Florida, where the death penalty is an option, to that sentence. But the jury found against that. But, there is that backdrop here where the state's attorney, Ayala, was not going to seek the death penalty.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like a really interesting political backdrop here where the state's attorney, where the prosecutor didn't even want the death penalty. And then Governor Rick Scott said, no, this guy, the death penalty should be on the table. And he went in there and shook up the case and removed her from the case and her death penalty cases in general and assigned someone else. And then in the end, the guy gets life. Interesting.
It is interesting, and this could be the jury sort of commenting on that political backdrop here. They could be commenting that they didn't think that she should be removed, and this is their way of sort of getting politically involved. I'm speculating here, but that could be a factor.
We don't know how much the jury actually knew about those details. How much they're not supposed to be factoring that in, certainly in this case.
But that was public, so I'm sure that you could keep a jury away from certain things in the media as much as possible. But realistically, in this day and age, that is a very hard thing to do.
And important to note that Markeith Loyd, while he may have been spared death this time around, next year will go on trial for another murder, the murder of a police officer, a female police officer he shot in a Walmart. You see her there, Deborah Clayton, while he was on the run after he killed Sade Dixon. She confronted him in the Walmart. He took out his gun, shot and killed her, and that trial is going to get underway in February, another death penalty case. So we don't know, obviously, until it happens how that will shake out, but certainly the death penalty is still something that is an option for him out there. Now, Markeith Loyd, interesting to note, made some statements in court this morning after both sides wrapped up their case, before or right after the jury went to deliberate his sentence. He said to the judge, "I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I waive my right to be present for the sentencing," although he did end up being there in the end. Let's listen to a little bit of what he had to say. Now, ultimately, we're not sure whether it was they didn't have time to relocate him or what the story was. Ultimately, he was still in the courtroom. Imran, unusual that he even spoke up and said, "I don't want to be here. I just want to go back to the jail." What do you think?
I don't think it's unusual for this defendant in particular. I mean, he's shown no remorse for his crimes. He's been outspoken. I know there was this whole thing where earlier on, whether he was going to have an attorney or go pro se. I mean, he's been a very outspoken defendant. He's been somewhat belligerent. He's been sort of not shown a lot of respect to the process, the judicial process, or to the court. So I'm not surprised that we heard this sort of colloquy between this defendant particularly and the judge.
And after the trial wrapped up, when the jury began deliberating to begin with on the initial charges, he went on and on about how he felt his counsel was ineffective and they didn't represent A, B, and C. So he certainly hasn't been quiet. He took the stand himself. At this point, does it really make a difference whether he would have been there or not? I mean, the jury's not in there to hear this from him. Right.
Well, this colloquy, no, but I mean, his demeanor in court through the proceedings would be a factor that the jury would be taking into consideration, just sort of his presence. And again, it's been reported on as much as you, in this day and age, with so many online reports, blogs, Twitter, television, it's hard to sequester a jury in terms of what they're going to be receiving from the media, especially when it's a very public case. So, it's no secret, and I'm sure this jury has heard somehow just his actions prior to this trial and his sort of, lack of remorse. I think that's something that the jury probably took into consideration.
Right. I think he certainly did not come off as a sympathetic character to
Right.
anyone. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we want to talk a little bit more about the penalty phase of this trial, how it all led up to the jury's decision today. Stick around. We'll be right back after this break.